Welcome, everybody, to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Thursday, November the 5th, 2020. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider. And they're asking the question, are you ready for this coming winter? Omni True Value Hardware is ready for the winter. They're the largest provider of rock salt on Long Island, and they serve the tri-state area, too. So not just Long Island. If you're nearby, come on down for rock salt, mag ice melting pellets and flakes, Petalo premium snow and ice melter, biomelt, geomelt. Also, spreaders, shovels, snow blowers, and everything you need to get through winter storms when they arrive. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125, or go to the website omnitruevalue.com, which is pretty easy to remember, I think. Mr. Rayo, welcome to you.
As the late great Bert Lahr would say in The Wizard of Oz, the movie The Wizard of Oz, it's rather unusual weather we're having lately, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it?
It is. It's been amazing.
So here we are. Also, want to say a special thank you again to everybody for last night for what was Joe and Joe Appreciation Day. Joe and I did appreciate those of you, all of you being there, and also hitting super chat. I also want to make an announcement, so this way you have a heads up on what is coming here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Next Monday night, we are going to have meteorologist Larry Cosgrove on, and Larry does a lot of long-range forecasting stuff. Every month he puts out a monthly outlook, and they're pretty interesting if you do read them. If you do get them, definitely take the time out to read them. They're very interesting, and they give a pretty in-depth analysis of what's going on across not just the northern hemisphere. He talks about stuff that's happening in the Pacific as well as out in the Atlantic that all go into making our weather pattern. So that'll be Monday. So write that down on your calendar and make sure that you are there for the Joe and Joe Weather Show. So we're really excited to have Larry on. I asked him to come on, and right away he said, "Sure, I'll be there."
Within 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's amazing.
It's really nice.
Larry, some of you may remember Larry. He was on-camera meteorologist, mainly on weekends. He was the backup to legendary Dr. Frank Field on Channel 9, WWOR TV. And he also had a stint when I was at News 12. He'd occasionally fill in for me at News 12 Westchester, but he also eventually became the evening meteorologist in Connecticut. So you may remember Larry or know Larry from that regard. But again, he also has, or am I getting this confused, Joe? Weather America, is that somebody else?
I think that's Larry, and I think I believe he's down in Texas now.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun, and think up your questions now, because maybe there might be another surprise as we get into Monday.
It'll be interesting to see what in his analysis of the upcoming winter, how it either is on target with, or maybe diametrically opposite, perhaps, to what Jim Witt had told us last week. So
from what I've read, and we'll have him, since we're having him on, we'll have him talk about it. He seems to be a little bit more bullish on the winter for January and later January going into February. It might time out in the same way. I don't think he was as bearish on January as Mr. Witt was. So everybody's got their opinion on what may or may not happen. The bottom line is none of us really know. So we'll just for me, Joe, it's always been kind of watching what happens through October and November, and kind of remembering that you can be fooled by a lot of the stuff that you see early on in the early to mid fall. You can be fooled by the weather patterns that set up then, because they don't necessarily set up that way when you get into December and January. I've often found that in most years, somewhere in December, a switch gets flipped, and we go from whatever we were doing to whatever the weather pattern is going to be for the winter months. So it's a mystery to me as to what's going to happen.
Well, we'll see. We'll
All
see.
right.
And you know what? When we get to the end of the winter, everybody will have forgotten the predictions that were made before the winter.
But we
It'll
won't
only
let
stay
them
with
forget, will we?
yeah.
We'll be here to remind everybody.
Yes. On May
All
9th, we'll have another
right.
blizzard.
That's right. Always and in good fun. We don't mean it to to be vicious, um, or, at all. Maybe a little bit vicious, but not really. So, speaking of winter and snow, I thought maybe for a change of pace, before we talk about what will probably become Tropical Storm Eta again, is the fact that everything right now is going on in the west. There's next to nothing going on in the east. We've got snow coming in and a lot of rain, in fact, for the west. You can see this is the snowfall forecast map from the Weather Service. With some big snows up in the Northern Rockies, but actually the snows extend quite a bit up and down through the Rockies, but even also into the mountains of California. We're seeing in the Sierra Nevadas, we're seeing the first big snow of the season. Also in Nevada, Carson City forecast to get half a foot between now and Friday. This is what happens when you get a deep trough in the west. And of course, some big snows in the mountains just east of the big cities in Oregon and in Washington. And the biggest amounts will be up in Montana. Uh, Helena getting 9 on their print, but as you go further north, but I don't have any cities that are plotted here. Oh, Great Falls is in that mix. Great Falls is getting 15, according to the Weather Service forecasts that are out there. So, going to be busy snow wise in the west, and I guess it's just as well because this time of year in the east, you're still where it's really early, even in the colder places up in upstate New York and in northern New England. Could it happen this time of year? Of course, but it's still a little early for snow to come with regularity. So for the snow lovers in the east, I would just strongly suggest that you be patient and looking, Joe, at the WPC's 7-day rainfall or melted precipitation. Looking like they're getting bullish here in the east for. Now remember, we go to. Hold on, I could probably update this. Yep. So this goes to next Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Eastern time, and they're bringing some rain up the half-inch line to New York City, the three-quarter-inch line through central New Jersey. Then you start to get into the 1 to 3 inch plus from Virginia down to the Georgia coast, and of course in South Florida, where they may be dealing with rains from Eta, 5 inches plus there. Some wet weather. It's funny, we're going from what we have right now, which is basically, except for the Pacific Northwest, the rest of the country's not doing anything as far as precipitation goes. And then you look at WPC's map for the next 7 days, and except for a couple of spots here and there, everybody's going to wind up getting some precipitation at some point.
Yes, and while we're waiting for the precipitation to arrive, it looks like we've got 3, 4, 5. I'd say like 5 glorious days ahead of us with dry conditions before the next round of precipitation threatens. And even then, Joe, I mean, I was looking at some of the models. The European wants to hold off on precip until practically the end of the day on Wednesday here. I'm not sure if we're going to get that far along before we see the first raindrops, but while people down, let's say in Florida, and of course the snow's out over the western United States, while all those folks are going through those woes, if you will, we're going to be just sitting pretty for the next 3, 4, 5 days, I think.
I will tell you though that I woke up this morning to low clouds, fog, and wet pavement. But
yes,
because the marine layer was there, I could see it on the satellite. It was in a very narrow band. I was right in it. However, it burned. It was very shallow, so it burned off very quickly. And I think we're going to probably be in that mode where the marine layer. I've been saying how that's probably my one concern over time when that high stagnates, and depending on what kind of wind we have, we might be dealing with a marine layer to a certain extent. As long as it was a shallow marine layer, it wouldn't be a problem, even if it were to spread inland at some point. And I think that's still the case. I think we're going to be fine probably through Monday with regards to that.
I think it's fortunate that for two things. Number one, I think the winds are going to be primarily west southwest over the next several days. That
Right.
certainly will help to dry things out in spite of a low cloud cover in the morning hours. And also, the sun still has not reached the bottom yet. That's the solstice, and that's still about 6 weeks away. So, although the sun now really is not overly high, I mean, we're heading for the period now, the dark period of the year, I call it, from mid-November to mid-January, where the sun really doesn't change all that much in altitude, but it really is at the lowest point as it skims across the southern horizon. And so it's going to get more difficult in the days and weeks to come to burn off that scud or that schmutz if you start out in the morning. Again, the west southwest winds help a lot. If we had that kind of stuff in the morning and we were with an east or east northeast
Or even
wind and that low sun
even a
angle.
south wind, it would be problematic.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, for you.
Oh, for me, big
Rob,
time. I wouldn't see
up,
any.
up, up where
I
I
wouldn't
am,
see any sun all day.
I mean, for me to get a marine layer this far north, that would be something. But
Yeah, no, it's a little. You're certainly in a much a safer place when it
yeah,
comes to that. So let's jump off to the satellite tonight, taking a look at what's happening here. There's a little trough that's coming through the Ohio Valley at the moment, and that's the high clouds that you see running from just about almost into western New York and western PA. Down into the Tennessee Valley. There's nothing with those high clouds. It's just high clouds. Little weak upper trough goes by. Other than that, really, there isn't too much going on. You can see the moisture piling now into the northwest, and also if you look carefully on the upper left, you can see the big swirl that's out there. So we've got a nice looking storm that's coming ashore there in the Pacific Northwest. It's also drawing up a little bit of subtropical moisture into Southern California, which is probably the reason why we're seeing the rain that's in the forecast there for the next 7 days, because with the deep trough in the west, there is a bit of an opening for flow to come in from the Pacific and move on land. So that will bring in some wet weather. I want to switch real quick here just to take a look at the watches and warnings just to see what they have up. Kind of curious as to what they have up in the northwestern U.S. at the moment. And we are looking at, almost a good chunk of state of Montana, Joe, under a winter storm watch. And they also have high wind. I think that gold is a high wind watch, right? No, it's a high wind warning up for northwestern Montana. So if it, when the snow materializes, you're probably looking at blizzard conditions there. Winter storm watch is up for the Sierra Nevadas, and some winter storm warnings up already for the Sierra Nevadas. Have some dense fog advisories on the other side of the mountains. They're up today. Also, some various wind advisories up as well. And we don't take a look at Alfred Phillips, our buddy from Wainwright, Alaska, will enjoy this because we don't really do this too often. We really should do it more than we do. And that's take a look at the great state of Alaska, where a large portion of the state is under a winter storm warning. I always like reading winter storm warnings in Alaska because sometimes they're from 1 to 2 inches. And it's or the blizzard warnings. So they're going for
again, it's a blizzard warning, Joe. I mean, we've mentioned this before. I mean, you could have a blizzard warning here.
right and have
You only have an inch or two of snow. It's really more a function of the
of
wind.
the wind and the
Blowing in
visibility. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you don't even have to have snow actually falling. It could just be blowing snow. So the winter
right.
storm warning, Joe, is in effect for, I hope I can pronounce these correctly. Alfred, forgive me, okay, if I get this wrong. Alakakit,
You're
okay.
asking me?
No, Alfred Phillips, if he's on. Alakakit, Hughes, Beatles, Caribou Mountain, and Gobbler's Knob.
Gobbler's
There's a
Knob?
Gobbler's Knob, Alaska. They're actually going for heavy snow. Travel will be difficult, they say. Okay. I would think in Alaska they kind of used to this sort of stuff. Total snow accumulations of 8 to 12, blowing snow in higher terrain, especially along the Dalton Highway. And also and this is all of this is taking place in the upper uh, Koyukuk, Koyukuk, Koyukuk. Again, my apologies, our Alaskan viewers, if I get this wrong. Share with us the correct pronunciation. It would be great. And uh, the usual stuff with the winter storm warnings. It's always kind of fun to. I always like to take a look. And wherever I pick the point that I pick, Utopia Creek, Indian Mountain, LRRS Airport, not available as far as temperatures are concerned. But they got a good chunk of the state, Joe. Look at this. It's like includes Fairbanks in there, and so is Nome. And they even have coastal flood warnings in effect for Nome. So busy, busy, busy there in the big state.
Sometimes I can't believe it. They have a Gobbler's Knob, Alaska. Isn't that Gobbler's Knob where Puxatawny Phil lives?
Is it Gobbler's Knob or Gobbler's Notch?
No, I think the Notch is where they had the first votes of the election. But
that's right, the one in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's something Notch.
Yeah.
Smuggler's Notch.
Well, Smuggler's Notch is in Vermont. That's all the way up in northern.
Is there
Vermont.
a Stewart's there? That's what I want to know. Is there a Stewart's in Smuggler's Notch? And if I pulled up the Canadian set, it doesn't go out as far up to the northwest as far as Alaska. But again, you can see on this what's going on off the coast of the Pacific Northwest with that storm that's coming inland. Very impressive looking on the satellite. Again, most of the flow from Canada, folks. Which way is it going? West to east, which means all the energy is being left up there, and we're just kind of left to our own with the ridge that's building in the eastern part of the United States. And here's the radar. Pretty solid looking precip, though, coming in to the northwest. There's a lot of rain heading into the northwest and extending down into Oregon, and it turns to snow as you go further east in Washington State and up into northern Idaho. So it looks like this is definitely a very loaded system. The rest of the radar pretty quiet. Just want to give a quick check to Florida, where because of the easterly flow that they're getting, the top of that gyre we've been talking about that's been sitting over Central America is kind of feeding in a little bit of moisture there, and they're getting east winds. So you're seeing these sort of like ocean effect showers going on and moving inland into parts of coastal Florida. They're scattered, though. There are a couple of heavier downpours here and there as you head down into South Florida and over the Keys. And we're going to see this probably increase over time as ETA starts to reorganize. The surface map tonight is not an especially exciting one when you have a big high sitting out well offshore and all those wonderful west-southwest isobars over us. And again, you see the isobars down from southern Georgia down through Florida and to Cuba. They're all going with the east to west flow there. And you've got low pressure with those spider leg fronts that come out of them running across southern Canada. And there's your storm that's sitting off the coast there. It's not a particularly deep storm, and it's impressive looking on the satellite, but it's only a 10-15 low that's being analyzed. But it's loaded enough, so the pressure sometimes doesn't necessarily make a difference with what the general weather is going to be.
I think, it's just a matter of the time of the year that we're in and the unusual, almost anomalous pattern that we have going on right now, where it's so very warm here in the east and so cold, and also to a degree snowy out west. And yeah, Joe, I've been to Montana, and where they have those warnings. Did we say that those were blizzard?
We did the watches and warnings. What's that?
Did we say that those were blizzard warnings? The gold area that is in Montana.
The gold area was a high wind warning.
Oh, high wind warning.
Yes.
Well, you can have a significant storm system blowing down the lee side of those of the Rockies, and you could have some really, exceedingly strong gusty winds, especially in the wintertime. And that also goes for the states to the south, Wyoming, for example. Gene Shepard, the famous radio humorist. I don't know how many of you were Gene Shepard fans when I was growing up. I used to listen to him every night on WOR radio, but he also wrote books, and he once wrote a book or a chapter in a book about a Wyoming screamer And he said he was very lucky to be inside and not outside when those winds were howling and the snow was blowing, the dreaded horizontal snow.
Right.
And so
Well, they got west winds all across Montana today and into Wyoming. Temperatures are in the mid 70s. So this is all ahead of what's going to happen.
it's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, the front and the colder air behind it's not quite in yet. The front actually is just moving now into Idaho. So I guess all that precip is all rain at the moment. But there is colder air as you go up into Canada. Just have to sort of wait for that whole trough to come crashing down, and that will change everything over, change it all over to snow in time. But they're just they're setting up. And actually today, just like yesterday, as someone had pointed out to me, it's everywhere. It's basically 70s from coast to coast, from north to south, except for south parts of Florida got up above 80 in a few spots. But at least at 5 o'clock this afternoon, just about everybody in the U.S., save for a few places up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, but even there it's in the 60s and 50s. It's everybody else is just pretty much sitting in the 70s. Can't get more pleasant for temperature wise this time of year
It's
in a
been,
uniform basis like this.
I mean, how we wish the world, or at least the national situation, was as calm as the weather has been from coast to coast these past
Yeah, well,
couple of days.
yeah, well, patience. So we'll see. We'll move on to ETA. As when we look at the satellite loop, it looks very disorganized at the moment, which is not a surprise. Getting pretty much ripped by the mountainous terrain there in Central America. It's even hard to really find any kind of circulation. Looks more like a remnant low. The Hurricane Center pointed it out in their discussion. However, you see there is convection starting to fire up in the Caribbean, especially that cluster that's just east of the coast of southern Belize. It's probably right in there that we're going to see a low start to take shape and strengthen as it begins to track to the northeast, which is how the Hurricane Center is treating this here. They've got tropical storm watches up for the Cayman Islands, and we're probably going to see watches and warnings eventually for parts of western and central Cuba. The track of this is a little slower today on the Hurricane Center forecast. Uh, Still over Cuba at noon Sunday, so they've kind of pulled it a bit further south, and then it takes a sharp left turn to the northwest from there. And on their forecast now passing south of the Keys, but remember, this is going to probably strengthen into a high-end tropical storm, and it may not look like it's not going to look like it did where you had this sort of very tight core that developed when it was becoming a hurricane. This is going to be a larger and more spread out in terms of its coverage. So just because it's tracking where it's tracking doesn't mean that you won't see heavy rains in parts of South Florida later in the weekend and into early next week. So bear that in mind. And again, as I said yesterday, and Joe will agree with me on this, it's given the upper air, which is not really showing a strong flow in any particular direction. Steering currents are going to be all over the place, so expect more changes and expect more model volatility going forward with all of this. Hi.
Joe, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Aren't you
Oh,
there?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I,
That's all
was I
right.
supposed to say? Was I supposed to say something?
You're supposed to
I
say you
well,
were supposed to respond like it says on the script, Joe. You were supposed to say, Joe,
I
that was
agree with
probably
you.
one of the most brilliant explanations you have ever given.
I agree with you. No, no, I'm not
Okay,
saying anything else.
come out of your senior moment now, because I'm about to have one. So the new GFS, there's your low. It just sort of pops up out of nowhere, but it is going to be there. And this particular run, for whatever reason, decided to really tighten this up. So I go ahead and say that's not going to be some sort of tight-looking system. Now, of course, the GFS comes in and shows a tighter-looking system, brings it over Cuba, and then turns it northwestward. Actually, brings it ashore near Miami in southern Florida as a rather wrapped-up little system here. If you look at the pressures, it'll certainly would say that this was going to be a high-end tropical storm, but you kind of look at the way the isobars are shaped here and how tight it is. You wonder. Again, I don't know if this is going to wind up verifying because of the, again, the very volatile nature of what we're dealing with here in the atmosphere. And off it goes into the Eastern Gulf and just starts to meander in the Eastern Gulf for a while. And it weakens over time as the low gets absorbed by a frontal zone that's up along the East Coast, and this is for late next week. Again, this could wind up being correct. On the other hand, we could wind up seeing this go a bit differently. I'll show you what it looks like on the upper air. The Joe, one of the keys here to me, there is an upper low that forms in the northwestern Gulf, and I've got the GFS up here so you can see this upper low that is sitting right near Houston, Galveston, and the upper system that reflects ETA is over Cuba at this point, actually approaching Cuba, and it's how it really reacts to this upper low. And what the models did with this is that just sort of the upper low just for the most part weakens, and then you're left with a strengthening system in the Florida Straits, or maybe it goes into South Florida. I don't know, but that upper low being there is important because it drives the steering up toward the Bahamas, and then if it does weaken, it'll give it room to go more northwest and into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But I don't know. There's probably far more uncertainty here than normally would be. Is the best way to put it.
And I do notice for people who are wondering whether or not there might be yet another tropical cyclone on the horizon, something that would put us in position to break the we've had 28 tropical cyclones of one way, shape, or form. So number 29 obviously is going to be the record breaker. And looking ahead on the earlier run of the GFS, the 12Z run, Joe, it appears that they're trying to cook something up in and around the area, or very close to where ETA has been, in the vicinity of south of Cuba and east of the Yucatan. But that would not occur until, if it does occur, until about the 18th of this month. So we're still about, well, a good 12 or 13 days away from that. I know the GFS
run. On the GFS, actually, it had two systems on the GFS. It formed another one, and you can see it here. The gyre is still there, and the pressures still remain very low in much of the Caribbean. And yeah, it fires it up a week from Monday in the Southwest Caribbean. But there's also something that comes in across the Atlantic along about 20 degrees north, and there's a low that fires up there north of Puerto Rico, which on the 12Z run, you could follow an identifiable feature with that right into southern Florida. On the 18Z run, it still has the lower pressures in the Caribbean, but it really didn't do very much with it. But on the other hand, it seemed to do more with the thing in the Atlantic. It took it northwestward. This time it took it toward Bermuda, then moves it out. So potentially I think we're going to certainly see another. I think we're going to break that record. There's still plenty of time for one or two more.
And what did we say the next name on the list is? Theta?
Theta. I want to get to Iota. That's the one I want. I want Iota. They could stop at Iota.
I forgot what's after Iota. I've been waiting in Iota for this to happen.
Exactly. I don't give an iota.
Yeah.
What you were waiting for. All right. So we'll see. But I think it's probable that we'll probably have storm number 29 and just put this year completely in the record books. We got it to tie it. Be almost well. I don't want to put it this way. Nobody wants to get a tropical storm or hurricane. I guess if it happens in the open waters of the Atlantic, to get the name out of the way, let it happen there where it doesn't bother anybody. So meanwhile, back home, we'll take a look at the upper flow as far as what we're going to see going forward. And by the way, everybody, Joe Rayo is monitoring the chat board, so if you have questions, by all means, share them with us. There's your deep trough that drops into the west. There's your big ridge that develops in the east to offset the deep trough in the west. And of course, you see the tropical system there in South Florida. The trough in the west sends energy up into the northern plains and western lakes, but we still have this ridge along the east coast. It weakens, but it doesn't completely go away. The upper air tries to uh, flatten that ridge in about 10 days for all of maybe 5 minutes, and then the ridge pops up again, heading into the middle part of November. And then the GFS on this run drops a trough into the east that moves out. Then another trough comes into the east and it moves out. By the time we get to the end of the period, much of the country is under kind of a westerly flow. There's a little bit of Canada influence in there. We're sort of on the edge of that. There's an upper low that drops down west of California, and there's an upper high in Mexico. So your flow, it's just sort of a west-northwest flow. Uh, I guess the best way to look at it would be that we have our great weather that we're dealing with now, and again, taking us through the weekend. That high is in West Virginia on Saturday. It's not east of Cape Cod. So the onshore flow, Saturday might be the good day, Joe, where you could see temperatures approach a record. Because you got your high in West Virginia, you've got a west-northwest isobars, and there's a few of them that run from that high up into northern Maine. So, and the ocean is still warm enough that it's not going to really be a big sea breeze issue for the coast anyway. So that west wind should hold. I think Saturday and Sunday. Sunday's a little tougher, but not impossible either. We've got the highs probably sitting right overhead. And then Monday we start to get into that a little bit more, that wind coming in from the southeast and then south. And then, of course, on this GFS with this system coming out of the west, you see the showers that it's got actually quite a bit of shower activity coming in here Tuesday night and Wednesday with a front that goes by, kind of absorbs whatever's left of ETA. Then we've got another storm. Let's go back. I just want to kind of look up in the northwest, and you can see the snow that gels up over the weekend with some big snows there in Montana. The low runs up toward Lake Winnipeg. Then there's another low that races up to the lakes. That's our cold front for Wednesday. And then we've got another low that comes out of the southern plains and heads to the lakes with another cold front next Saturday, if you want. So we're going from this long dry stretch to a stretch where Sal Blandino is going to be, having issues.
Sal Blandino has absolutely nothing to complain about these next
But
several days.
he always, whatever it is, whenever it's raining, that's the day where he's got, he's got some harem showing up and at the house or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre. It's just really bizarre. So there you go. The pattern to me, there's a very, I don't know how to describe it. I guess the best way. It's just kind of ordinary. There's no big storms here in the east. You're not going to get big storms in the east with a ridge position the way it is and where the trough is. So we're fortunate enough that we're going to sit in this upper high for a while, and we'll leave it at that.
Well, I'll tell you, in terms of record temperatures, I can definitely tell you, Joe, most assuredly, that here in
most assuredly, Valley, absolutely,
yes, absolutely, we're going to break a record here in the Hudson Valley on Saturday. The record at Westchester County Airport, which is from 2015, is only a paltry 67 degrees. And I'm going to say right now that temperatures across our area on Saturday are going to range anywhere from 69 to maybe as high as 75 or 76. New York, the record for New York on Saturday is 78. I think Central Park's going to get to 75 at least on Saturday. I'd say about a 20% chance of at least tying the record on Saturday. And even if we don't tie or break the record, you're still going to love it. It's going to be a spectacular few days coming up.
I promised yesterday that we would take a look at snow cover, and that's what I'm doing. I'm pulling up some graphics right now, and just give me half a second here.
Christinapedia says, well, I'm happy with the 7:30 so I can watch Jeopardy. But then, and what attracted me to her message is 864,589 people have to call me. Well, it also turns out that 864,589 is the diameter of the sun. So I don't know whether or not she just pulled. I don't know whether or not she pulled that number out of
No,
space.
I think she's trying to tell you something.
What, 864,589 people have to call her.
Yeah, I think she's
They
trying
have to do it, but the diameter of the sun is that. So what in miles?
Well, I'm thinking she wanted to see if you would get that.
Oh, well, I got it.
You got it. All right, so let's take a look. Dr. Judah Cohen is we'll call him the father of the Siberian snow cover theory, which suggests that the rate of snow cover growth during the month of October is tied to the kind of winters we have in the East. I would venture to say that the idea has had mixed results as a forecast tool. It worked pretty well for a bunch of years, and then it didn't work so well after everybody figured it out that they should start looking at it. So, as always in the world of weather, there's a way of getting everybody on one side of the equation, and then everybody gets fooled. But the rate of growth looks like, if you follow this chart, which basically plots the rate of growth, zero would be where you're, above that line means above normal snow growth, and you can see some of the peaks that occurred after the year 2000. Mostly subpar snow cover growth, Joe, from 1980 to about the year 2000, and then mostly above par snow cover growth from 2000 right through the last couple of years. But if you notice, uh, the last two winters in the I-95 corridor anyway showed above a little bit above average growth in 18 and quite a bit above average growth in 19. Now this year it's sort of he describes the outcome as being probably right in the middle of the sample pack. So it's above the zero line, but not very far above it. So it looks like it's about the midpoint of where the snow cover growth has been in the last 20 years. And with respect to specifics, I just pulled up, and this is what it looks like across Eurasia at the moment. And judging from maps that I've seen, I could go back and probably find some maps from the last few years, or go into their archives and pull them up. But it does definitely look less than what we've had in previous years. I would just caution everybody not to really put a whole lot of stock in this. This is a very broad vision of what the winter might be. It's not going to help you on the day-to-day or any kind of individual storms, but being that it finished in the middle of the pack, I would say that you can't really draw much of a conclusion from it. Snow cover growth in North America was actually running pretty strongly, but because of the warm weather, if you remember last week, we had snow cover in the western part of the United States all the way down to the Southern Rockies. Well, guess what? It's all melted. The warmer weather that's covering most of the U.S. just took care of that, and also the snow cover that was in parts of southern Canada, that's all gone. It's going to come back, but with this storm for the weekend, but it's pretty much all gone. And seeing a little bit of snow cover up in northern New Brunswick, western Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. This is dated, by the way. This is as of yesterday, and also in southeastern Canada, seeing snow cover there. But again, from an overall standpoint, it's not exactly overwhelming. Let's put it that way. And I also would not draw too many conclusions here at this point regarding what it means with respect to the weather going forward, because that could get corrected very easily. I will say, though, if we've got this ridge, the way the ridge is in the eastern part of the United States, that isn't going to happen anytime soon.
Right, and I was amazed looking at the graph of snow cover over the years. I'm kind of amazed at how all of a sudden we're above that the median line from about the beginning of this century to where it is now, as opposed to let's say the 90s, where it was constantly below that line for snow cover up in Siberia. I don't know what it is that all of a sudden that we went across a line in the sand or a line in the snow, so to speak, that all of a sudden in the last 20 years at this time of the year, we're seeing snowfall up in the northern or polar regions, whereas we didn't really see all that, during the decade of the 70s and 80s.
Right.
Or 90s.
Right.
I'd be interested to see where was the snow cover in Asia, let's say in 1995, the year that we got.
I think that was the one year on there that it actually, if I read the if he does, there's a line. I'm trying to figure out which one it is. Hang on, I'll bring it back up on the screen here.
That was the year, I think.
So 90,
75 inches.
All right. So 1988, 89, 90. So 90 is okay. I'm thinking as I'm reading this, let me get my pen here. Okay, so I'll mark it off with the pen. So here, actually I could draw a line. So we'll draw the line. So 90 is you'll see it come up as I know you're on a delay. But 90 is the first arrow, and then 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. So that would be going into the winter of 95, 96. You'll see that, Joe, as the second arrow, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000. Now, 2000 is this one. 2001, 2002 was a La Nina year, and there was very little snow in the Northeast that year, all the way around. The next arrow that I'm drawing is 2002, and that was a 2-3. The next 4 winters were fairly robust winters snow-wise in the Northeast. But you know what? It didn't always work. For example, 2005 was actually subpar. 2006 going into 2006, 2007 was actually above normal. And that was also a subpar snow year.
Yeah.
5-6 was above par snow-wise, but it was a subpar snow cover growth. And then, I'm looking at 9, 10, and 10, 11. So 9, 10, and 10, 11 were above normal, but not very far above normal. Okay, so that was 10, 11, 12. So here's now you look at 13, 14, and 14, 15, which were 2, very cold winters and snowy winters. Those were very high in terms of the snow cover, both those years. In fact, the 14, 15 one is that's the highest of the 40-year sample. So some years it gives you a good signal. I mean, it seems like on the years where it gives a really, really robust signal, but again, it's a small sample size, so I don't know. And then the 95, 96 one, it was below the 0 line. So, at best, I think you could get. It seems to me now. Again, we're always dealing from our own personal perspectives, being that we are in the coastal plain / I-95 corridor, and you know as well as I do that when you go 50 miles north and west of there, it could be an entirely different world with regards to annual snowfall. So I don't want to say too much. Try to get a conclusion out of this based solely on living from Washington to Baltimore to Philadelphia to New York City to Boston, because that doesn't really give a fair assessment for what the weather could actually be during the winter season.
So there's no magic chart, so to speak. Really, I know one person who's a believer in this, and that's Bill Goodman over the National Weather Service. He said just yesterday or the day before, well, I've got all of the information I want now on the Asian snow cover. So,
well, he and I have talked about that, and he said his big emphasis is you have to really look at where the snow cover growth is you want to see it as far south in Eurasia and as far west as you can. that in the years where the snow cover growth was on the southern flank and on the western flank and happened early, those are the winters that wind up being more robust in general in the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic states. But it's not 100%.
Right.
So, like, we're always trying to find that magic bullet. I'm just reading a comment here from Abstentia, and I cannot pronounce it. It's an XU Xuicotl. I have no idea how to pronounce that, and I apologize ahead of time. And the comment is, I really wonder if ETA could do something different. I think ETA will likely be a Cat 1, but I'm curious if we break the record because a lot of November has been quiet. We're at the time of year that these storms, it's going to be unusual to have two of them at the same time. They're going to pop up here and there. In fact, as you get deeper into the month of November, tropical cyclones, while they do happen on occasion, usually they come from systems that are way out in the Atlantic, and they gel up in the central Atlantic and they get named. We have very few instances of having to deal with tropical cyclones here in the U.S. Maybe in the Caribbean, there might have been a couple over the last, I don't know, however many years you want to look back. Every once in a while, you do get one. But being that this season is so active, if you use 2005 as a comparison, the last storm didn't pop up until after Christmas. So we obviously are well ahead of that since it's only November 5th. And the last storm that year, which was the Zeta, came on December 28th. So
yeah,
and we've already there's an extra storm in 2005. There's an unnamed subtropical storm that they added in post analysis. So that's why the names don't match up, and that's why their last storm is Zeta, and we've already passed it on the name list, but it's still a tie. So
maybe we have a Theta and a Kappa in our future, or on Iota.
Well, you might have to go to Phi Beta Kappa. That's going to take a little while to get down to the calendar, down to the alphabet. And I don't know that we really want to take that particular trip. I know I'm not keen on doing tropical cyclone stuff in the month of December, unless it's a Category 5 that winds up coming up the East Coast as a post-tropical cyclone and producing a record snowstorm in the Northeast. Hey, listen. I feel vindicated, if only because of the fact that the GFS actually did that on one run last week, which we showed on the air here. Okay,
right.
So I feel vindicated that it did it for me. You know how we used to stand by the models and make it personal when they would come in and take the snow area away. It did it as a favor to me. Somebody was listening to me, in the model gods were paying attention. And by the way, the chairman points out in a message that I just received from him that he took a break. We got a break from work. He's doing his COVID runs. December turning a switch on at Central Park of 64 Decembers with at least 5 inches of snow. Joe, 44 of those winters wound up being above normal.
We'll see. What else can we say? I'm just getting back to, the hurricane season, extended hurricane season. I remember there was one hurricane that happened or formed on Christmas Eve, I think, near Puerto Rico. I think it was Hurricane Lily.
Yes.
Lily.
Lily. I am Lily of the valley, in the valley, way down yonder, over there. Oh, good Lord.
If you're not an I Love Lucy fan, this is totally meaningless to you.
Right, in which case you have a very long education process ahead of you, so you need to watch all 7 seasons. Oh.
I would rewatch them, except MeTV for some reason buries I Love Lucy at like 6:30 in the morning.
Well, that's fine for me because most days
I Love Lucy, but
you're not
at 6:30 in the morning.
I'm usually up by 5:30, 6 o'clock. Although I will admit to this morning, because I was running around yesterday taking care of my mother, and so I didn't get to bed particularly late. I got to bed maybe about 10, quarter to 11 or so, and usually even if I go to bed at 10:45, I oftentimes am wide awake by 5:30 or 6 o'clock. But I actually slept till after 7 today. Okay.
Wow.
So I was, and I have this 20-pound comforter. So I have the thermostat upstairs. I have the thermostat at 59 because I don't want the pipes to freeze. So I have the thermostat at 59 in the depths of winter, and I have the window open. So my bedroom gets down to probably about 60, just high enough where just above that 59, so the heat doesn't get kicked on. And I sleep under this 20-pound comforter with my New York Giants blanket on top of that. I tell you, Joe, it just is so I get into a really deep sleep, and I wake up just invigorated.
Sounds like
Invigorated.
sounds like sleeping under Gorilla Monsoon or Haystacks Calhoun.
Yeah. Now I just
Oh,
I I'm in the wintertime, the thermostat is at 60, and it works for me because I rarely, knock on wood, I rarely get sick. So um, as long, oh, by the way, that reminds me, for those of you on my Facebook page, I went for a walk today. Let me just bring these shots up. Um, just some autumn shots. I had, of course, nobody goes anywhere without their phone. So I just whipped it out and took a picture of some of the beautiful colors in the neighborhood. And this all yellow tree was a standout. I mean, it almost looked like it was emanating rays of solar rays coming out
wow.
of it. It was really pretty. And then I got a couple of shots here of some Japanese maples. This one was the all red one. There was one that I took that was actually half red and half um, yellow. Maybe that was the one, or maybe not.
Well, we have a
But
rare.
anyway,
I
it's
have.
pretty enough. And then here's the last one that I took of a really big. All the leaves were just that deep color red. They all stood out because there's still a lot of greenery up here. I was actually surprised. I thought with we've had a few frosts and some cold nights around here. I would have thought the leaves would have turned a bit more uniform. But starting to see some really deep color here on Long Island.
Yeah, here up where I am, it's about 75 to 85% bare trees, and the leaf drop has been rather extensive. The oak, I have a big oak in my front lawn, and it's the lone tree that still has not yet dropped much of anything. So there's nothing I hate more than you get an early snowfall and you have leaves on top of the snow. But
Yeah, no, I like. I'm like I'm the same way. Get them all out of the way
get them
because
out.
get them out of the way because it's no fun when you're trying you get an early snow with leaves underneath and you've got the snow blower out and it's trying it sucks in all the snow and the leaves at the same time, so you get this sort of pancake that comes out as the snow tries to blow away.
Scott Briller asked a question, a Briller Jeopardy question on the chat board. What was Lily Munster? Since we brought Lily up, what was Lily Munster's maiden name?
Oh, good Lord. And I remember an episode where they actually mentioned it. I don't remember.
Well, who played Grandpa?
Al
Al Smith.
Lewis.
Al
Al
Lewis.
Lewis. Al Smith
And
ran for president in 1929.
and Al Al Lewis is supposed to be what, a take on Dracula, right?
Yes.
And I mean, in fact, he even tries to bite Lily in one of the
Right. I mean, one of the
opening.
opens. Now Lily
But
was his.
now is that
She
so? Is
calls him
that Lily's?
She calls him grandpa, even though that's actually her father.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, then could it be that the maiden name is Dracula?
Yeah, because remember Herman was referred to as his son-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to
So
call
that
him grandpa. Because they had, of course, Eddie, his grandson. Uh, they called him grandpa, but he was actually Lily's father.
so
Does he?
I'm wondering if that's the answer. I
Well,
wonder if Lily's.
we don't know what Grandpa's name was on there. I don't. At least I don't remember. So,
Yeah, but I'm
um,
taking a guess because Grandpa looked like Dracula.
yes,
and tried to bite her at one time. So I mean, like, who else would do that except Dracula, right?
Correct. So well, that's what
So,
it's supposed to be.
well, I'm sure we'll find out eventually from the chairman what the maiden name was. Um,
He'll
but,
probably post it.
yeah.
We're kind of curious about it, Scott. So if you post it on the chat, I'll
Those of a certain age will remember that channels that ABC had the Addams Family, CBS had the Munsters, and on the Flintstones they had next door neighbors that were called the Gruesomes. Remember?
Yes. I wonder what was that maybe a takeoff on the Addams Family?
I think it was a takeoff
On
on both the
both?
Addams Family and the Munsters because that seemed to be the big thing back then.
Do you remember?
There was even a period in the late '60s where Channel 2 had a superhero by the name of Mr. Terrific, and Channel 4 tried to buck that with their own superhero, Captain Nice.
Mrs. Terrific.
Mrs.
Mrs. Terrific. Which we know, of course, is just up on the upper floor at your house. So I just saved you from,
Well, she's not here tonight.
Oh, she's not? Okay.
No. She's at the German club.
Oh, okay. Then that was a wasted compliment. We'll have to save it for another time.
Save it up for another time. Maybe tomorrow. Or will there be a tomorrow?
There won't be if we keep this conversation up. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight was, as always, every night, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider. So make sure that you go there and be ready for the winter, making sure all your winter weather equipment is up to par. Because you're not like Joe, where Mrs. Rayo repairs the snowblower and takes care of all the machinery. So head over to Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125. The website is omnitruevalue.com. And
the chairman says, by the way, the answer was Dracula. And by the way, on Sunday, Thriller Jeopardy will be all about Bond, James Bond,
which I know very little about. So anyhow, reminder, as I said at the top of the show tonight, Monday, mark your calendars because we're going to have meteorologist Larry Cosgrove on. He does a lot of long-range stuff, monthly forecasts that he publishes on the internet. Many of you may read his weather postings. He'll be on Monday, and I told him, I said, Larry, bring a few graphics. He says, okay, I got 20 of them. So, so
we'll be here all night then, Joe.
Here, so it'll be interesting.
He'll go into a half-hour dissertation about what a Miller bee storm is,
which is fine. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions, and I was just happy that he was so. He answered right away and said he'd love to come on, so we're going to have him here on Monday at 7:30. So in the meantime, Joe and I will be back a lot sooner than that tomorrow night, because I think with Ada around, maybe we should do a show tomorrow night.
Okay. We'll be here.
All right, so I'm game. Everybody have a great evening. Thanks for coming here, and we will